He needs bots to inflate his popularity because he's afraid of irrelevancy. He needs racism to give him an enemy because he's afraid of a real enemy. And he used Jews instead of Israel as his enemy because an entire state is hard to argue against, but individual Jewish people are easy to oppress and bully. It is all positions based out of fear and insecurity. So everybody makes mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are platforming people who ought not have one. Now, why would you want to not platform a person? Well, usually if the person's not going to operate in good faith and only serves to gain from your platforming. Like, let's say you had somebody who's actually a Nazi. Like, not Nazi in the sense that you don't like them so you called them a bad word, but like, believed the Holocaust never happened, believed Hitler was right and based, and generally believed eugenics and race superiority were good things. Should you give that person a megaphone? Most sane people would say no, but apparently Piers Morgan says, yeah, sure, why not? Let's have a debate with somebody who's not going to actually operate in good faith. If I had a podcast or a TV show, I think I would platform everyone. Everyone deserves to have their opinions heard. Even if they have a body count and they're using this platform solely so they can make more dead bodies. Especially if they have a body count. That is horrifying and yet somehow unsurprising. I'm gonna roll the intro to get away from you now. Now, before we get to Piers Morgan and Nick Fuentes together, I need to preface this with the fact that we are actually covering Amir Odom. We've covered him before on the channel, and I want to look at this through the lens of, you know, the conservative who's trying to get clicks specifically. I think that's an interesting lens to listen to this through. Also, I want to give you a pitch. If you enjoy listening to politics, but you want somebody who's going to be somewhat fair when going over them, please consider subscribing to my channel and maybe letting a few friends know about what I'm doing over here. Yeah, I know VTuber, ha ha ha, but I think I can be fairly even-handed even though I'm definitely biased in a particular direction. One other thing, I wanted to thank Talaladar, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, for the fan art of Slime Suris in a 55-gallon drum. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, drop it in the Discord. But with that said, let's get into the main meat of today's video.
This debate was one of the most funniest but also most insightful thing that I've watched probably this entire year. And before we even get into it, clearly I am black. And I don't hate myself, I'm not a self-hating black person, but I can definitely understand why there's a growing amount of people out there who are sick and tired of black people, do not like black people, and don't even want to live near black people. I get it. Black fatigue is real. And I'm gay. I don't hate myself for being gay and I don't make it my whole identity, but I can also see why people are sick and tired of the gays. The trans shit, the drag queens in schools, the LGBTQ books, all of it. The LGBTQ, the gay fatigue, it's
Okay, we obviously have to talk about this at least a little bit. So, you know that the reason why people have black fatigue, gay fatigue, all of that, it has nothing to do with things that are actually happening or actually being done by gay or black people. So, let's go ahead and get something straight. I hadn't actually heard the term black fatigue before, but I realized that this was because I'm not a black person, and that is kind of obvious if you look at any of the pictures of me. I'm not actually pink in real life, but I'm also not black. So one of the things that I realized, despite growing up in a very black neighborhood in Montclair in the United States, in Pensacola, that does not mean that I still have all of the tendencies from growing up there. And I mean, I'm now a decade and a half removed from that environment, so a lot of things just simply don't carry over anymore. A lot of language, a lot of ways people comport themselves, they just don't stick with me anymore. So I looked into this, and it turns out there are two different sides to the story behind what is considered black fatigue. I checked out one creator who I was not familiar with named Blackie Speaks. I'm not endorsing him one way or the other. I do not know enough about his content, but in this video that I checked out, he did kind of give the point that, hey, a lot of the black fatigue is black people who feel like, you know, ghetto culture does not represent them and who they are. And yet, that is exactly what media and pundits and personalities tend to focus on more than anything else when talking about, well, black people. I want to play you a little bit from his video because I think it's actually fairly insightful.
Talk about today. Now, black fatigue is a growing term in the social media world, a phrase that's meant to explain a rising frustration, dissatisfaction, and even resentment towards a small portion of the black community and some of the dysfunctional behaviors that are increasingly being called out. But here's the thing, this isn't a new term. The phrase black fatigue was originally coined in 2020 by Mary Frances Winters, a black author from New York. She was inspired to explore the concept after hearing the same phrase come up again and again from black millennials. "I'm tired," they kept on saying. The exhaustion wasn't just physical, it ran deep, tied to emotion, history, and identity. In her book, Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit, she explains that the original meaning of the term was about the centuries-long toll of the systematic racism passed down through generations. Now that was the original definition, but now the term has taken on a completely new meaning.
Now to black fatigue, it has recently been turned into a feeling that some white and black people have who say they are damn tired of foolishness of some black people.
It is a completely behavior-based issue.
So, like he said, there is a version of this term that is exclusively talking about the, society's long fight with racism, and then there's a version of this term that is about being tired of certain aspects of, like, very, very loud, very, I guess you could just say, ghetto culture that people do not generally like dealing with that much. And I know somebody's gonna get upset at me for wording it that way, but the reason I worded it that way is this.
Black fatigue is real. Everybody is tired of black people, but it's two specific types of black people that everyone is tired of. Number one, everybody is tired of loud, ghetto, and ratchet, and violent, and mean, and angry all the time. Everybody is tired of them. Nobody wants to deal with them. Even other black people do not want to deal with these people. You know when you see them in public, you know when they're gonna give you attitude at the CVS. Everybody knows it and they want to avoid it.
But then, like you said, there is the other version of how this term gets used, the original version of how this term gets used. And, well,
a lot of times when people hear this phrase black fatigue, they may not know its original association was with the fatigue we feel from living in a system that wasn't built for us. But they may hear it in the context of white folks saying, basically, we're tired of black folks asking to have their rights, asking to, ask folks to act in a way that's consistent with our Constitution.
Again, the historical version of it, which is we are tired of not having our rights yet, and the current version of it, which is we are tired of black people. The secondary one definitely seems quite a lot more racist in general, but there is the side of that where it's supposed to be about a particular kind of behavior, and there's definitely these kinds of behaviors in white communities too that are considered trashy, that people don't want to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it's a little mix here. My concern is that the way it's currently being talked about is basically an opening up for racism, because what happens is you get a bunch of people upset about a certain type of person of a certain type of race. That type of behavior becomes a stereotype. Then that stereotype gets used to paint the entire race over. But anyway, I'm focusing really heavy on one part of this because when he talks about gay fatigue or trans fatigue afterwards, it's the same thing. You've got a minority group of people who are fighting for their rights to exist and get married. After all, this is what the Stonewall riots were about in the first place. You get those people who just want to live, just want to be allowed to breathe in society, and then you get people who twist that idea into all of us normal people are tired of you gay people being not normal. And my concern is that when we use language like this, when we use it this flippantly, we end up opening the door for bad actors in our society to use that open door as a way to say, hello, my fellow whites, don't you not like the blacks? Hello, my fellow normies, don't you hate the gays and the way they peg each other? Boy, my wife hates it, she's jealous. And considering that Amir does a lot of his content as a sort of way to say, pick me, I'm the good gay guy, I'm the good black guy, to conservatives who would otherwise have black fatigue, gay fatigue, etc. like he's describing, I don't know, I find it to be disingenuous and really, really frustrating behavior. But it's not the focus of the video. The focus of the video is about the Nick Fuentes and Piers Morgan interview, so we're going to fast forward to that.
Real. And hell, I'm not even Jewish, but the way I've been treated, the reactions we've seen, the war, the hundreds and millions of dollars we're sending over to them, all while America crumbles. Listen, it is clear that people are sick and tired of the Jews, and there's a Jewish fatigue growing.
And this is why I wanted to get as much context for the first part of this video as possible, because I knew we would get to this. Anytime you're talking about Fuentes, you're going to talk about Jewish people in some way, shape, or form. So, Amir, I sincerely hope you understand, and as a content creator, you understand the dangers of using flippant language, but I hope you understand the difference between being upset at the Jews or being upset at Israel. So, Israel is a state that is a ethno-state that is actively engaging in a genocide and taking millions upon billions of United States support and dollars in order to kill the people of Palestine, and they've been doing it for years. That is a huge problem. And there's a lot of arguments to be made about how the United States involves itself in proxy wars and how it's really dumb seeing Israel do all the shit they're doing and knowing that we're just the ghost behind them. But absolutely zero of that has anything to do with Jews. It has nothing to do with the Jewish religion. It has nothing to do with Jewish people. The actions of Netanyahu and the state at large are completely different than even the people who live within the state at large or people who happen to be Jewish in other areas of society. Like, for instance, I do not like the things Donald Trump does. I do not like the ways he's been harming people that I love. I do not like the way he acts. I do not like the way he engages with foreign policy. But if you were to say that every action he takes is a reflection on me personally and my values, then I would tell you to get a swirly. The actions of the State of Israel and the actions of Jewish people are not the same thing. But there's a reason Amir is painting this way. It's because there's been a concerted effort to normalize the ideas of one Nick Fuentes.
I'm making a lot of money now. Yeah. Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust and Jim Crow. We're done hearing about that.
And we've been seeing Fuentes in a lot more areas. We've seen him being interviewed by Piers Morgan, being interviewed by Tucker Carlson, being talked about by Ezra Klein. But Philly D actually had some insights for me on this that I was not aware of. You see, one of my growing concerns with Fuentes is that as his sentiment gets more popular, as he gets more popular, more people become okay with Nazi ideas, because that is what he is. He doesn't soften himself for people. He just is unabashedly a Nazi. However,
is because of this new study from the Network Contagion Research Institute that suggests that the answer is no. In fact, in their opening lines, they say, Nick Fuentes' surge into national visibility did not originate from a broad or sudden shift in American political sentiment. It emerged from a pattern of online amplification that was unusually fast, unusually concentrated, and unusually foreign in origin. And you had the researchers coming to that conclusion by sampling 20 of his most recent posts on X and then comparing them to similar posts from Elon Musk, Hassan Piker, Ian Carroll, and the streamer Destiny. What they say they found is that the engagement within the first 30 minutes of Fuentes posting something routinely outperformed all the others, even accounts 10 to 100 times as large. And then with that, saying that just over 60% of that engagement came from the same repeat accounts, which they said is highly suggestive of coordination or automation. With 92% of those repeat early reposters being fully anonymous, having no real name, no real photo, no location, and no contact info.
So when Fuentes makes the claim that people find him to be more popular and more agreeable and they like what he's saying more, it's not really true, because a lot of the information that he is putting out there, it is abrasive, it does rub people the wrong way, and the reason he's gotten as much pull as he has is through automation, through bots basically repeating, reposting everything that he says and does. It's basically the angry monkeys typing constantly to promote Lex Luthor from the Superman movie. It's the same shit right here. It's literally just a bunch of bots trying to make one guy more popular. Problem is, irrespective of the fact that it's bots or not, the end result is he's got numbers now. Numbers inflated by places like Rumble and by bots and automation on Twitter, but he's got numbers nonetheless. And through having those numbers, he's now being talked about by major news outlets instead of by, random assholes on the internet like me exclusively. And because there's so many people who are talking about him who are not as familiar with his online repertoire over the last decade, or simply don't care because they want to ride the coattails for those numbers, you get people like Amir who are going to talk about this very, very flippantly.
When you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them.
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. He said, so you use the N-word? I said, yeah. He goes, well, when niggas are being niggas. I said, so true. That's so true.
Are we going to act like that's not true?
I don't know. I feel like there's certain words I just would not use to describe people merely because they are not words that are appropriate for me to use. Like, that word's exclusively been used to denigrate and talk down to black people, and I'm sorry, but I feel like the only appropriate use of that word outside of very specific context is somebody who has the capacity to reclaim that word for themselves. I think when white people use terms like that, we end up using it so flippantly that we end up just causing more damage than anything else. And yeah, there's an argument about how venerating the word the way that it's used adds power to the word, but like, that's only really an argument if the word doesn't already have that power and causes that kind of damage. Like, I remember the joke being played on me when I was a kid, because again, I grew up in a black neighborhood where, as a white kid, I didn't know what that word meant. I didn't know anything about it. And one guy was like, hey, you should tell your friend over there he's this word. And I'm like, I don't know why I would do that. They went, oh, it just means they're a really good friend. I said, oh, cool. I'm a kid. I'm stupid. I went and said that to him, and thank God, this friend of mine who I played Yu-Gi-Oh! With all the time, thank God he kind of like stopped on his bike for a second and went, okay, so you don't use that word. And I had to have it explained to me as like a 10-year-old kid from an 11-year-old kid, you don't use that word. That's going to get you shot. That's going to get you hurt, my guy. And, as an adult now, I'm not really so worried about getting shot or getting hurt. Again, these are things you worry about more when you're a kid, when you don't know what the end result of your language is going to be. I just don't want to cause harm to people, and I find that word to do nothing but cause harm. Again, there are specific contexts, like quoting books and stuff like that, where, yeah, it's perfectly okay, but that's not how people use it generally.
You are a follower of mine, you've been subscribed to this channel, you know who Jamal is. If you're new here, you're confused, Jamal's my alter ego. There's Amir, and then there's Jamal. I literally have a sign back here. One of you guys painted for me. It says, I'm about to go Jamal. This whole video is about to be Jamal, because I'm already just raging. Jamal's like an angry black man. It's literally a joke.
I mean, yeah, there's a joked stereotype about a particular kind of person who comes from your race, ostensibly. The problem that I run into is how much damage can that stereotype cause when we amplify it far past its actual point of origin. Or, moreover, we use the flippant use of those terms in order to amplify people like Fuentes and say that, oh, well, what he's saying is okay because that's what we say in our communities, even though that's not exactly what's happening.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime. And it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men.
This whole video, y'all just gonna give me just unfiltered. I'm just gonna be popping off. I have a lot of patience, I do, but Piers frustrates me, and like the amount of hate Nick gets sometimes frustrates me because a lot of
the amount of hate the Nazi gets frustrates you, and the amount of hate that the bog standard conservative does not get that frustrates you. You are a confusing person. And I'm sorry, but I am not responsible. If the world that Nick Fuentes wants comes to be, I'm not responsible for your shit getting moved out of your house.
Thing that he's saying is just facts. And it's so much fact that it frustrates me that it's not just seen as like common sense. Yes, obviously, most school shootings are white people. What average day shootings that happens every single weekend across this damn country are from black?
So you talk about how Nick Fuentes is the one spitting facts, but we actually have the numbers showing the amount of gun violence, like the amount of mass shootings done by white people versus black people, and it turns out that white people account for the majority of gun violence. Does that say anything about white people specifically? No, not really. We do make up the majority of the US population, so these are the numbers that I would expect. Now, what's funny is I actually did a video years ago talking about the black versus white violent crime statistics, and most of the data in there still holds true today, so maybe check that out. It's an oldie but a goodie. There should be a link to it in the card in the video right about now-ish. I have studies linked in that video as well, but the TLDR for that video is that it turns out that while we do have a higher amount of raw gun violence, or at least violent crimes, committed by black people in the United States compared to white people, this is all based on reported crimes, and you get more reported crimes in black neighborhoods, and you get more recorded crimes in black neighborhoods because those neighborhoods are policed more and documented more heavily. One of the studies that I have in the description of that video actually noted that scholarly research has documented that minority citizens, this is everyone, not just black people, but Asian people, Mexican people, etc., they are stopped, searched, and arrested more often than baseline population stats could normally account for. Our police tend to racially profile, and this is not really a secret. This is just a thing that happens in general. So it makes sense that when there are crimes that could possibly be swept under the rug in areas like, you know, an unreported shooting where somebody goes to the hospital and then doesn't feel comfortable talking about that stuff, those crimes could be committed by anybody, and we don't have raw data on them. But the people who get investigated more for these crimes and then show up more in population stats as a result are black people, irrespective of whether or not they earned that. But Piers Morgan's points on the actual numbers for mass shooters are salient, and to argue they're not is kind of weird.
And if you're listening with context and nuance, like, you'll get it. It does frustrate me when people, like, a school shooting happens and everyone's like, oh my gosh, a school shooting, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. As if a school shooting isn't happening every single weekend in every single major city in every single black community. Oh,
I don't know if that's actually true. I want to fact check you on that. Because even if what you said is true, it doesn't actually mean that suddenly black people are more prone to gun violence. It just means that they're more likely to be victims of gun violence. And I don't know, standing on the graves of the kids to make that point feels kind of flippant, but you are celebrating a Nazi, so I decided to look this up and figure out how I could know if what his statement is, you know, being articulated as is actually true. And how we would figure this out is we would look at how many major cities exist in the United States and then look at how many mass shootings are happening in general and see if those numbers add up. So he's saying that they happen every week, so there's 52 weeks available to us, and there's about 340 major cities in the United States. And we're using the population stats for major city to be any city with a population of over 100,000. Over 1 million, there's only 10 cities, but that's not really relevant to the conversation. So if there's 346 cities, and there's 52 weeks available to us, and each year we are having, from 2020 till now, we've had between 74 and 83 school shootings every single year, so we've had about a shooting and a half per week. Let's quickly listen to his claim again to see if the numbers add up.
as if a school shooting isn't happening every single weekend in every single major city in every single black community.
So every single weekend, so 52 times, in every single major city, so that's 52 times 346, in every black community, of which there are several in major cities, but we don't have a straight number for that. So while there are a disproportionate amount of school shootings in the United States, and that is an epidemic that we need to solve, your statement requires there to be at at least 17,000 school shootings happening in the United States right now. Amir, I'm sorry. I can't. I just can't. This is just such a wrong statement because none of the numbers agree with you. But let's fast forward to a little bit because there's a part of the interview where Piers Morgan tries to push Nick Fuentes on whether racism is justified. Now, obviously, Nick's going to say, okay, I would say that racism is a tendency that damn near everybody has at one point in their life in some form or fashion. It's just a specific outcropping of prejudice. Is it always justified? Well, let's see what the clip says.
White people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition.
There's not much I can say to this in opposition when I know good and well myself and other black friends that I have and black people that I know do the same damn.
So that's cute, but I do want to say that there's a difference between walking away from a group of people because they're black or walking away from a group of people because they're a group of people. Now, if we're talking about you should avoid black people in general, then that's a stupid, unjustified proposition, because it requires you to think that that black person is disproportionately going to do something to you, which the numbers really don't bear out that way. The likelihood of you having something bad happening to you when you go outside in general is remarkably low. It goes up in a city because it's based on how many people you come in contact with, and there's more people in a city, and it has to do as well with wealth disparity in an area. Places that are more poor tend to have more crime because there are more people who are desperate and who are going to go and do desperate things. Higher population stats also mean that you have a higher chance of coming in contact with somebody who has had unchecked mental health problems. You never know who it's going to be. So always recognize that you should operate safely when you're out and about, but that has nothing to do with a person's race. Now, Nick tries to justify this by pointing out a singular, killing victim who happened to come across black people and got stabbed to death. Here's the thing. That has nothing to do with anybody being stabbed, and this is something that the right wing likes to do all the time. Instead of showing you population statistics on the likelihood of a crime happening to you, they instead like to tell you a singular anecdote and use that as a scare story. It's actually a tactic we used to use with children. It's the reason why you tell scary bedtime stories about things under the bed or things lurking in other areas you don't want kids to go into. It's a way to warn kids away from things that could hurt them. To still use that tactic as an adult is to show that Nick Fuentes treats his own audience like children. These anecdotes are used because they are the equivalent of racist bedtime stories to let people feel like they should maintain whatever levels of racism they currently have. There's actually a whole section in usafacts.org that actually breaks down the statistical likelihood that you will have any violent crime happen to you based on if you're in an urban area, in a suburban area, in a rural area. And the stats bear out that since 1993, we've actually had the world in general get less violent when it comes to places like America. But people like Nick don't want to show you that because if I show you that, it might dispel your fear of random black people stabbing you. And when Amir says, oh, well, I can't say anything about that because my friends who are black do the same thing, that's also an anecdote. Neither of these are arguments that should be anything other than dismissed by anybody who has a fully functioning frontal lobe. And everybody who's had a lobotomy in my chat and thinks that that's offensive towards you specifically, I don't even know how you got to that emotion. But real quick, before we get to the final bit, I do want to say that I would really appreciate it if y'all were to pick up Overton. Today's video is sponsored by the city of Overton. Overton's a 3D printed 100% practical effect video game that really sits between the vibes of an ARG and a point-and-click adventure game. And the best part? I'm in it. I actually play the main character, Tim.
Dude, you broke down my door. I'm not going with you. Listen, I hate to bring this up, but I am clearly able to force you if I wanted to. So you, me, and the escape route now.
So if that's your jam, please consider picking up the game. There will be a link in the description below, and let's get back to the video. Thank you for tolerating a mid-video ad. Let's go ahead and get to the final portion of Amir's video.
You try to come across as moderate, but every now and again the mask slips, and it's slipped again here with what you say about Hitler. There's nothing very cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what he did. You've already conceded that he murdered at least 6 million Jews.
Now, I want you to notice something specific about Nick right here. Do you see the shit-eating grin on his face? For every single bit of this conversation, he's seemed, I mean, like your average young podcaster, but the minute you get about Hitler, suddenly he's giddy as hell. This is his favorite conversation. He adores Hitler. Now, what's going to be interesting is to see how Amir responds to that, because Amir can do a mutual racism bonding with Nick all he wants, but how's he going to respond to the guy actually saying that Hitler's based? Let's see how this goes.
So when you say he's very cool, Jewish people watch this and go, this guy's disgusting. Why would he say this about someone who perpetrated such an evil? And what's the real answer? Why do you? Is it just for clicks? Is it for money? Is it just for fun? For shits and giggles? What is it? What motivates you to say something like Hitler was very cool?
It's for this. It's for all of this. And the lack of self-awareness.
It's literally that. Like watching, again, Piers melt down over Hitler, it's like you're focused on the past. There's a lot more to melt down right now about what's actively happening in our own countries.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You think that this is all some kind of smokescreen. Amir, the reason that Nick loves Hitler so much is that he wants to be Hitler 2.0. He wants the world Hitler envisioned. It's not a smokescreen. It's not a thing meant to distract you. It's the MO. It's what Fuentes wants. He wants you talking about Hitler. He wants Hitler to always be relevant. He wants more people thinking that Hitler's ideology was fantastic. To try to say this is like some 3D chess thing where, no, he's not really a Nazi. He's using it as a distraction so the old people are talking about the past while Nick talks about the glorious golden future. No, that's not what it is. Nick is a man stuck in the past who wants the future to be a reflection of it. If anybody is stuck in the past here, yeah, the old fogey on the left-hand side is, but Nick is as well.
Then what someone did really, really bad to another group of people, really, really bad. Not calling them bad, but like, is the whole situation bad? Yeah, we can say that's bad, but like, why are you getting this mad and triggered when your own country is falling apart?
Okay, but Amir, again, the reason that he does that, the reason he's saying that, is because when people think that what Hitler did is right or cool or based, they start repeating the mistakes of the past. They start creating a new Third Reich, or at least trying to. And Amir trying to play pretend like this is all some game that Nick is doing when it's really just his belief. Like, he actually thinks Hitler was amazing and based and all of that garbage shit. Those are beliefs he has. Instead of scrutinizing those beliefs from the moment they are delivered to you, instead, you are saying, oh, no, look at him elaborately troll Piers Morgan. Look at what he's doing. Isn't it so elaborate? And then turns it into whataboutism about, well, your country's falling apart, so don't talk about what Hitler did in Germany. No, we can teach people about how the Holocaust was bad and address problems going on in our country. Everybody's country can say they're falling apart. The United States can say it's falling apart. Canada can say it's falling apart. The UK can say it's falling apart. But the example he gives is this. Oh no, a bunch of hooded people who look brown are in my country. Oh God, the humanity. Jesus Christ, this pick-me shit is tiring.
It's the hypocrisy. It's like, why are you this upset, this jarred?
No, better question. Why don't you care about Hitler in this way? Like, okay, when somebody says, if a 12-year-old kid said, I think Hitler is cool, how would you respond to that? What is the appropriate way to respond to that? Is the appropriate way to respond to that saying that, hey, yeah, I think he's pretty cool too, or why are you focused on the past? Shouldn't we be focused on the glorious future? Or should you instead sit down and try to educate that person? Nick Fuentes is a person who celebrates Hitler. Instead of asking the question about why he celebrates Hitler, you're instead defending that by saying it's an elaborate troll set up to fuck with Piers. This is pathetic.
For what?
This is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer, and we've spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying he's a really fucking monster. He incinerated people. And I'm sitting here saying it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And
not that serious.
I'm getting at.
Not that serious.
Do you want to say more about he's a monster?
And of course, Amir is sitting here like shrugging, like, yeah, he's right. Liking Hitler ain't that deep. Like, is this? Okay, I just gotta ask, if you're conservative, and I want to hear from you, if you're from my audience and you find yourself more on the conservative spectrum, if somebody just shrugged their shoulders and said, yeah, I don't think liking Hitler is that bad, would you find that appalling or like alarming in any way, shape, or form, or would you find that to be a perfectly normal thing? Like, if you're the person shrugging your shoulders, thinking that just, liking Hitler and thinking he's the coolest guy in the world is just a normal everyday activity for people, then I feel like the mirror is where you need to be looking when you're trying to find your SS uniform. What Piers is doing, despite my disagreements with the man in general, but what Piers is doing here is explaining the reasons why Hitler is considered bad, the reason he's considered a monster, to contextualize it to people who might not know, because increasingly we seem to be getting to the point where people might not know, as evidenced by the amount of people becoming more okay with these ideas.
Personally, when I hear Nick say, it's not that serious, like, calm down, what I'm hearing and how I take that is, hey, what he did was really bad. No one's making light of the murders, and no one's making light of like throwing people in sheds and in the gas mask.
Amir, have you watched any of his content? He does that. Those are the things Nick celebrates. He bounces between Hitler being the most base person in the world and saying that what he did wasn't bad because the Holocaust never actually happened.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really fucking cool.
Do you regret saying that?
Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely true.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Yes, I do.
One of them,
and I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest,
this is the problem. You see, it's a bit like when you just say, "I'm a racist." You're a racist. You think Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking?
Oh, wow. It's almost like in the exact interview, Piers Morgan pushed him on that specifically. No, Nick doesn't say that what Hitler did was bad. At least he doesn't say it with any amount of meaning it. He says he was cool, he was based, he had the right idea. And, you know what's funny? Whenever you talk about this, inadvertently, and this is probably what's going to happen on this video as well, so look out for it. But inadvertently, you get all the people who are coming in support of Nick Fuentes saying, Piers got so butthurt about this guy. Hey, Piers, do you cook dinner for your wife and her boyfriend? Wow, Nick had me cracking up when he said the line, what's the matter? Too soon? And like, I get it, Nick's doing a Joker reference there. That's the whole, I'm tired of pretending it's not. Yeah, we get it. Joaquin Phoenix Joker was a movie that people enjoyed. But I think I'm done with Amir's video once we get to the point where you blatantly have to lie about the motivations of the person you're talking about on the screen, because we have evidence of all the context for all the times that Nick has said that Hitler is based or cool or what the fuck ever. Like, all of that's a matter of public record. And yet Amir refuses to engage with that and instead wants to make a video that's going to earn him, you know, damn near 500,000 views by the time it's done in the algorithm, so that he can also suckle the coattails of Nick Fuentes. It's really fucking sad. But I'll be honest, listening to what Nick Fuentes says, I think you can actually tell where most of his motivations are. It's fear. You see, when listening to somebody like Nick, there's a couple of angles you can take. You can take the angle where you are listening to what he says and getting offended by the things he says, but I think turning it around is way more interesting, because Nick tries to argue from a position of strength, but he uses the language of fear. White people are afraid of black people because of this. I am afraid of the Jews because of this. Call him out for it. He's a coward. He needs bots to inflate his popularity because he's afraid of irrelevancy. He needs racism to give him an enemy because he's afraid of a real enemy. And he used Jews instead of Israel as his enemy because an entire state is hard to argue against, but individual Jewish people are easy to oppress and bully. It is all positions based out of fear and insecurity. And it is important to call that out when it comes to Fuentes every single time. But that's about as much of this video as I can take, but I do want to know y'all's thoughts in the comment section below. Do you feel like I was fair? Do you feel like this was informative? Do you feel like there's things I could have improved or done better here? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, subscribe if you haven't already, and hey, maybe even consider supporting me on Patreon. That would be really cool. There should also be a link to Overton in the description below if you want to support the game that I was a voice actor in. And yeah, with all that said, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitt, you know I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.